Welcome to another episode of Fixing Your Club, and this time I'll be focusing on Harlequins. So to me it felt like the perfect time to cover Harlequins, who have just come off an incredibly strange fortnight of rugby, in which they suffered one of their worst defeats in a couple of seasons, being rolled over by a rejuvenated looking Saracens side at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, only to then complete an important victory against a title challenging Bath side. Harlequins have been a frustrating side to watch so far this season, and incredibly difficult to predict in which side turns up, as lazy as that punditry sounds. Against Sale earlier in the season, they were physically dominant and bruising, and against Cardiff in Europe, they were electric and built off of a staggeringly strong platform. However, against Saracens, both home and away, Gloucester at the start of the season, and Toulouse in Europe, they lost the collision battles horrendously and looked really disorganised. The defence in particular is at the point of being memed by columnists just about how glass cannon it really is. So to me, Harlequins are in danger of falling into the Wasps trap under the latter seasons with Dai Young, in which they could rip any side to shreds with their pace, power and creativity, but always tread the line of real vulnerability in defence and game management. That's not something you can really build title challenges on. Tabai Madsen has also announced that he will be departing at the end of the season, and although his official title is Director of Performance Development, he's become somewhat of a figurehead for this operation. So where can we start to help fix this? Well, a lot of the suggestions have fallen into covering the second row. That seems to be what a lot of the fan base want to see me cover, which does look like one of the weaker areas of this squad. Stefan Levies is 32, with a really poor disciplinary record and a somewhat poor injury record. Joe Launchbury is also 32, and the years of injuries and the premature start to his career at the highest level is contributing to a drop-off in ability, especially against the more physical sides. Ernie Hervst is also 30, and although a great squad player, I wouldn't necessarily say he's the future of where Quins prop up that position. And then underneath these guys, we have Dino Lam, who is an exceptional talent, currently out with a horrible long-term injury, but I worry for the Italian connection and Benetton's seemingly large pockets to bring these players over, and then the other options are all 24 or younger. So I believe Quins could do with signing a heavyweight name in their pomp to cover that tight headlock position. Ruben van Heerden is the big name that I would like to put forward, who is currently signed and flying with the Stormers in the URC. He's had an interesting career so far, having played for the Blues, Sharks and Exeter Chiefs previously, and so it stuns me that he's still only 26 years old. He's 6'7", 121 kgs and a really intimidating presence around the park. He's started all 15 games he's been featured in so far this season, putting up a huge 1,131 minutes, which is pretty much more than anybody in that pool of Quins locks. He also has been subbed off in his last 11 games and is a vital cog to this Stormers machine. However, there are rumours that he is only signed until the end of this season and has yet to renew, so I would be lobbing a bunch of rand into his basket to lure him back to the UK once again. In the centres, there is about to be a huge Esterhazen-shaped hole opening up next season. Now, Quins have fairly good depth across the centres. However, what we saw against Saracens is kind of a glimmer into what that current backline is like when he's not playing, and it is absolutely lacking ballast. I think Anyanwu is a super exciting prospect, and at 101 kgs, he certainly has the raw materials to be the guy, but he's currently only making 3.5 metres per carry, the lowest of all the options in the centres, and, as is the theme with Quins, his tackle success rate needs improving as it's sat at 68.2%. He's made 30 tackles and missed 14, which is really poor. In fact, as a quick side note, this whole grouping of centres only has a 75% average tackle completion rate and has missed 86 tackles already this season, and that's pre the Bath game. Now, it was really difficult to find the right profile to cover this gap, as it's well known that English depth at inside centre is pretty horrendous. On the continent, there are also issues, as most of the centres I would be interested in, who are big, horrible ball carriers and resolute defenders, are also locked into these long-term contracts. However, after spending hours trawling through contract databases and watching different material online, I think I have a really interesting option. Vilimoni Batitu will be a super familiar name if you're a big fan of the top 14, as he's been at Castres for nearly 4 seasons now. Now, he isn't necessarily the profile of Esterhazen, and that's important to note. However, he's not small either, as he's still 5'10" and 15 stone, but he's an absolute stat beast in attack. As a 25-year-old playing at the World Cup for Fiji, in his fleeting 3 appearances that were usually as a sub, he made 125 metres from 10 carries. That's a whopping 12.5 metres per carry. He made 10 tackles and beat 4 defenders, and he also scored a try. However, he's not really the preferred option at Castres, only starting 13 out of 21 games. Despite this, he has still put up a huge 1,092 minutes, he's scored 3 tries, and he's been very rarely subbed off. His version of defending could also be an important addition to Quinn's too, as his blitz rush is incredibly fast and explosive, as he's absolute wheels, and his cover defence is really strong due to his sevens background. No sign of a renewal yet completed beyond the end of the season, and between him and Nyamwu, you would have fierce competition who are both relatively young. The front row will also be an issue for Harlequins, as they have plenty of outgoing this season, with the veteran Will Collier leaving to Castres and Lovejoy Chawatama also going to Bristol. However, they do have the big American Titi Lamasatelli, who will be coming in, who's an absolute lump at 20 stone. I'm not his biggest fan, and Montpellier have been horrible this season too. I thought he was good in pockets with Saracens, but if he couldn't get close to being the main starter there, I wouldn't necessarily hang my hat on him here. But the concern for me is Big Joe Marler, now 33 years old, and the depth that we have there. I think Baxter is screwed on to take the starting duties into next season and there beyond. He's actually a really exciting England prospect, and rightfully so, but maybe a bit of ballast below him would be a good shout. Zach Nearchew is a big strong boy who came through the academy at Wasps, spending time out on loan at Benetton and Ampthill over the last 4 years. At just 23 years old, he's 5'10" and a hair away from being 20 stone. In 2021-2022, he looked already to be making an impression on that Wasps starting squad, featuring in 6 games that season. But with the massive issues that happened there and the scattering of their academy, he's now full-timing it at Ampthill. He's definitely going to be wet around the ears and not ready for featuring in the big games, but that's who you've got Baxter for. But in the Premiership Rugby Cup and during periods of rotation, he's ready now to take the step up. Under the tutorage of someone like Marler, maybe we could start to see his raw attributes really come to light. So to finish up, what would I do at coach, and how will we fill that Matson void with somebody that understands this frenetic style of play and how to build a platform off of it? The answer for me is somebody that I continue to raise as my first choice coach if I were looking to build any side in the Premiership, and that is Lee Blackett. Harlequins have so many similarities to that Wasps side under Dai Young. Although they have won trophies, whereas Young regularly narrowly missed out, it's important to time that rebuild to get the most out of the culture that you've created. When Blackett took Wasps over, he took on a huge burden in financial instability, a side that was stagnating in the bottom half, and a fan base that were growing tired with the underperformance. The first thing he did was fix that leaky defence, which rings alarm bells here, largely focusing on the disconnect between 10, 12 and 13, which is also highly relevant. He also much improved Wasps' kick chase and diversity of tactical kicking through Gopeth. He shored up the scrum, largely using talents through the academy and finding absolute gems from the championship. With that, he took Wasps from 8th to 2nd, and then all the way to the Premiership final, where they narrowly lost to Exeter Chiefs. Now at Bath, he's absolutely transformed their attacking shape and has really proven to be one of the signings of the season for any of these coaching staff across any of the Northern Hemisphere. With the depth of Harlequins' academy structure and the difficulties they have in the basics of defending, chasing and repossession, he just feels like the perfect person to slip into that role in the long term. Harlequins fans, let me know what you thought in the comments down below and make sure that you follow for next time.